Victim Protection Act. And what we show here is that Congress never had the authority to enact this clunker, because basically what it does, it gives our federal courts jurisdiction for things that happened in foreign countries. All right? Which would be like giving the Republic of Mexico the authority to come up here and say, okay, you violated Mexican law, all right? Or rather, let's say you're a turista, you're down in Mexico, and they've got you down there and say, well, you know what? You violated Mexican law. You were in Arizona or North Carolina when you did it, but since under this act we have jurisdiction, we are going to try you in civil courts, and we're going to take everything you own, which is what this Torture Victim Protection Act is. This particular situation was addressed in a district court in the Second Circuit, and they threw it out. But these maniacs in the Ninth Circuit decided that this is exactly what they were going to do, and as far as I know, they did it. Fifth cause of action, go to page 51, where we show that the Torture Victim Protection Act violates the ex post facto clause of the United States Constitution. Okay? Now, this is kind of tricky ground here, because we're showing that this refers to criminal offenses, and for criminal offenses, it's ex post facto. In other words, if something is against the law today and Congress passes a law tomorrow,
Good morning, folks. This is the 17th of April, 2001, Arno Domini, at 2 a.m. in the morning. The deliberate limiting and prohibiting of public access by Charles Dolan has turned everything topsy-turvy. Things haven't got done, and what has got done has been in a very disorderly manner, and perhaps the quality of the task has suffered because of the pressure that public access producers are under because of Charles Dolan making us run around and force somebody in the community to sign his illegal contract, quote unquote, and illegal application, quote unquote, and to accept the un-Americanism in his public access kit, quote unquote. let's start with the, this is a fantastic cartoon. The Michael Brown Lawsuit Cookbook. It is a cookbook that tells you how to file a lawsuit and to go pro se. Isn't it terrific? Now this cartoon is my joy and my delight. What you see here is a pro se who has in hand the crooked judge, holding same by the tie. The judge lets go of the gavel. It pops him on the head. And with his other hand, he has a crooked lawyer in tow. And then he has his foot on the U.S. attorney. And this is what pro ses must do. They must take the court situation in hand and they must bring in rein these crooked judges and these crooked lawyers and these crooked U.S. attorneys. This is a superb book. I've read about 50 pages of it. I can only spare 5 minutes a day to read it, but at least I do something on it. This is the Michael Brown's Lawsuit Cookbook. Here is another book Michael Brown sent me, and I wish I had time to read it to you. The Bill of Rights Restoration Act. Judges have ignored the Bill of Rights. Lawyers have ignored the Bill of Rights. When you go to court, you don't have any rights. Therefore, you don't have a court. And this little booklet tells about these things. And he speaks a great deal about the veterans and the veterans who put up this flag. Those 4 veterans there, and how 2 of them later died in the war for freedom. As Ben DeFont says, are you enjoying your freedom? Then thank a veteran. What happened on Tuesday, editing day, April 10th? It was good. The equipment always works there. I think I did only 5 programs. I was in the middle of doing the 6th when Rude Goldberg came in. And at the sight of her, it was 1:15. I stopped the editing, packed up, took Acumen for a walk, and left. And I went to Bethpage. And at Bethpage, I have here on audio tape my first exercise of statutory rights to see the Cablevision books, records, and minutes, and the shareholder ledger. And that was denied. I made the demand of Charles Dolan's office. Charles Dolan, the chairman, who doesn't know when the annual meeting is. So I called up Charles Dolan, as you heard on audio tape, and I informed the office when the annual meeting is. It is June the 5th at 10 a.m. at Bethpage. At Woodbury, Diane Bennett and Amy Van Horn refused to see me, and so and they had put the 5 tapes that I submitted on April 3rd in the cabinet to be picked up. And so I put those April 3rd that had not been cable cast if you shake this microphone, I think that didn't even get the news at all. And so I took those 5 tapes of April 3rd and added to them the 5 tapes of last Tuesday, April 10th, stacked them together and put them back into and gave them to V. This you must say about V is that V should belong to the Canadian Mounted Police because she always gets her person. You ask V to do something and it gets done. She's terrific. And so there were letters there, stock letters from Bennett saying that they wouldn't cablecast the program until somebody had signed these odious and illegal applications. So the next stop, oh yes, and I also this file. And I saw many people had signed the applications. There must have been about 50 of them in there. And I took down some names and addresses and telephone numbers. And I saw the leased access file, and they don't give me the right, Diane Bennett and Amy do not give me the correct leased access file. It should be the same as a public access file with the applications, so you can see the people's addresses and the telephone numbers. It takes a long time to call 411 and try to get the telephone numbers of these people. And out of 10, for instance, you'll only get 2 who are really real. The rest are all phonies. The leased access list is phony, like the shareholders list. Dolan in his toy army, his toy soldier army, as the Emperor Napoleon, keeps fake lists. And I have found this out. And it takes a long time to research this. One leased access applicant I called, Glenn Legan, said he could not buy lease access because Cablevision required $1 million bond. Now this is abuse of lease access, and it's limiting and prohibiting leased access just the way Dolan limits and prohibits public access. And Glenn Legan said that he could not find an insurance company who would sell him such a bond. So there's a lot of work to be done on there. Dolan has to be reported to the Federal Communications Commission for limiting and prohibiting public access and leased access. And then I asked to see Jeff Clark, and I asked Jeff Clark, what is the matter that I cannot see the political sponsorship file that is over at Rainbow Sales, which sells cable TV time for Charles Dolan. And Jeff didn't know, or he put on an act that he did not know. And so I went over to Rainbow Sales and I made my, I think it's the 6th demand to see the political sponsorship file in the public inspection file. The FCC, as you know, mandates that a public inspection file be kept by every cable system, and that part of that file is the political sponsorship file. There's a short in this microphone. It's a very good microphone. I guess I'll have to get a new one, or I have to use my remote microphone. So I went over. It was 20 minutes to 5, around 4:30, and I went over and I asked Zorita that I was there again to see the political sponsorship file. And this time, instead of getting a dodge, the way I did with Mike Rowty. Now remember, this is April the 10th I'm talking about. Michael Rowty had come out and said that he had no idea what this is about. And I says, well, I'll tell you what it's about. The Federal Communications Commission mandates that every cable system keep a public inspection file. And part of that public inspection file is the political sponsorship file. And Mike Rowty was hopelessly at his wit's end, and he fled. He just turned around and ran. This time I went over and Zorita says, yes. I'll have you go see Josephine. And lo and behold, Zorita took me to a conference room. Josephine appeared with a cart on wheels, and here were about 12 volumes, great big fat files, big ones, 9 by 12, and inside them were about 12 manila folders. And I went through that file, and I found out and saw copies of checks of politicians who had paid Dolan for airtime, for cable TV time, cablecast time. And they were big checks. There was a check there for $102,000. There was another check there for $62,000. There was another check there for $50,000 and $42,000. Charles Dolan squeezes money out of everybody, out of you, the subscribers, out of the least access users, out of the shareholders. He never pays any dividends. And now out of the politicians. He just wrenches money out of everybody. And I saw checks for $10,000 and $9,000 and $8,000 and $7,000. And I told Josephine, who was very helpful about presenting the political sponsorship file, I told her that I would have to stop looking at the files at 5 o'clock. PM business hour. That was terrific. What does this mean? That finally, on something, Charles Dolan obeyed the law. On something, he obeyed the law. He produced the political. I didn't bring my copy. Josephine wasn't sure that I could. I'm going to change over the mic or use the camera mic. Okay, I think I got the static out of it. And that was Tuesday. Then I didn't get home until about 6 o'clock, and I had traveled something like 97 miles. So Bennett and Van Horn were not going to cablecast the programs. They were illegally depriving me of my right to public access. And so it was necessary to play their game. And I got up the next morning, early in the morning I think, and I assigned the 6 editions, made sure that every edition had a cable system, and I made sure that every cable system had an edition. Excuse me, it's 2 a.m. Okay. Everything backed up, and I had to get up at 2 a.m. to make these reports to you in order to get them done this morning in time to edit them and hand them in. And then all of those tapes had to be labeled and dated, and they had to be put on the calendar. And so that big job was done. And early in the morning, around 7 o'clock, 7:30, I started calling people to see if they would sign these as local residents of Nassau County, Huntington, Babylon, and Islip, or Huntington, Islip, and Babylon, if they would sign this screwball so-called contract and application, all of which are illegal, and they will not stand up in court. Ed Galkey said that he couldn't because he's in Suffolk, but he knew several people in Nassau. And so we made an appointment to meet at 1 o'clock, and we would go over to Nassau and have one of his friends sign this. And then to back this all up, to be sure, I called Ehrlich, and he said that he would sign them around about 11 o'clock. I made an appointment with him. By then it was 9 o'clock, and then Carl Lancesera was in, and I called Carl, and we went over the application over the phone, and I told him how to fill it in, and he signed it. And I said I would be out at noon to pick it up, and then I called Ehrlich and said that Lance was going to sign it, and I called Galkey and said that Lance was going to sign it, and would they please stand by in the wings in case anything else happened. So at 11, Franklin was wrapping the tapes, and I put Acumen in the car, and we drove 40 miles or so out to Huntington Station, 1395 New York Avenue, and there we, Carl had signed them, and the nice young lady in Carl's office had given me a salad, a very good salad, with tomatoes and all kinds of greens, except money. And Adeline told me about the horrible thing that had happened to her, how the courts were taking away everything she had and going after her father's estate. That's the way they do. They find people with money, and then they charge this person with a phony charge and bring them to court and convict them, and to get the money. That's the civil RICO that goes on in all the courts all over the country. You've heard Michael Brown tell about it. So it isn't just something in the Eastern District of New York, it's all over the country. That's the way the state district attorney acts, and that's the way the United States attorney acts. They go after the money. It's a civil RICO. RICO stands for what? Racketeering, influence, crime, organization. Governments act as civil RICOs. Courts act as civil RICOs. municipal governments act as civil recalls with all the parking tickets and all those things. Anything to wring money out of the public, you the public. And so Adeline told me about it, and I took down her number, and I can't find her number. And I called up Carl to get it so that I can talk to her, because I have some people to put her in touch with. And then Carl signed, Bennett and Van Horn are requiring Carl to sign for every special now that used to be submitted freely and played freely on the cable TV in the spirit of public access to inform you, the public, of what's going on in your neighborhood. And in the case of A Chat with Glendora, of the crooked things that are going on in your neighborhood and how you are being flinched and deceived. And so Carl signed a whole bunch of those. And then I went as fast as I could to Woodbury, and I took the 10 programs, and I handed in the 10 applications to go with them. I handed in the generic application, which keeps the program on, and there shouldn't be any such requirement, on Friday nights at 10 p.m. on Channel 71. And I handed in the 10 specials, 5 for April 3rd and the 5 for April 10th. Lori didn't show up and pick up her tapes because poor Lori is stretched out at both ends by the things she has to do to protect people from the gangsters in our government. So she forgot to pick up the tapes, and they're heavy. Tapes that I picked up from Brooklyn and Manhattan and Queens and Yonkers. So all day long, again, was ruined by Charles Dolan. It's probably the 600th day of my life that has been ruined by the Charles Dolan law-breaking, which I will not tolerate, which as an American I feel compelled to oppose and bring that man to justice. I think that man should be fined and put in jail. So, Franklin finished wrapping the tapes. I did all the chores, taking care of the cats and dogs and getting things ready for bed. And that was all day Wednesday, taken up by Charles Dolan. And then came Thursday. I got up early, 4:30 or 5 o'clock. With acumen, you can't do much else. And I did a few of the chores, but not all of them. And then I started telephoning around 7 or 8 o'clock to find a person who would sign the Yonkers odious contract and application. And I finally located Fran Finesse, another victim of civil recall in the courts. She bought a co-op in the Harlem. She was overcharged for it. And then the people in the co-op went after Fran because she had money and because she had possessions. And so the crooked people in the courts took Fran's co-op away from her, took her money away from her, took her pianos, took all of her videotape equipment, took all of her possessions away from her, another civil recall, and this is in the Manhattan court. And then, because Fran was valiant and stood up for her rights, the gangsters in the government tried to set her up and get a criminal charge against her, and they made up a fake criminal charge against her. And they do one of two things. They make up a criminal charge against you, or they make up a psychiatric claim against you, and they try to put you away. This is how vicious and how evil and how sinister the people who are now in government are. And I took Fran to lunch, and it cost $20, and that's a whole lot of money for me. But it was a delicious lunch at a diner on Broadway in Yonkers. Fran signed the odious contract and applications, and we gave her a copy and a copy of the book, the kit. And then at 3:30 or 3 o'clock or so, I hastened to Yonkers to hand these in to Brenda Cherry because they have a fake deadline of April the 15th. Now you got to be a special kind of stupid to set a deadline on Sunday. You got to be another extra kind of a special stupid, which Cablevision is, to make the deadline on Easter. But that's what they did. So I rushed these up to Yonkers to get them in. And Brenda Cherry had left for the day. And here it was mid-afternoon. And she wouldn't be back until Tuesday. So I called and asked for Bernie Galley, and Bernie Galley's never in. And then I asked for Emily Spaulding, and Emily Spaulding came up, even though it isn't her job. Her job is to negotiate franchises with municipalities, such as TCI negotiated with 20 municipalities in Westchester, Greenburgh, Rye, White Plains, Eastchester, Bronxville, Scarsdale, and gypped us out of system-wide public access. And to this day, our freedom of speech has been illegally infringed upon since 1996. So Emily Spaulding, I asked her, when are you going to give us back system-wide public access, that you're in the medieval ages, that the people in those 20 municipalities are living in the dark ages. They don't have system-wide public access. They have no public forum system-wide. Oh, well, we're working on it. Working on it. It should have been done years ago. And by the way, John Malone, the thief of public access, whose financial empire has been crushed here in the United States, and he deserved it, is now looking overseas to try to build other cable TV financial empires and see if he can't get back his status. But he has been stepped on, and that is exactly what he deserves. Because he traded TCI for AT&T stock, and AT&T stock is... Now we will have to buy AT&T stock. You see, originally it was Continental who limited and prohibited and broke the law, first come, first served, and infringed upon free speech. every Saturday. And they got sued. In the meantime, Continental was gobbled up by U.S. West, and they changed it to Media One. And McCormick and Lillis continued to break the law, and they got gobbled up. They're both out of jobs. They got gobbled up by Quest, and Media One got gobbled up by AT&T. So I really should sell the Quest stock, and I should, the one share I think it is, and buy AT&T. Part of Franklin's inheritance was some AT&T stock. I've forgotten how many shares. And it wasn't doing anything, it wasn't paying anything, and it wasn't worth the bother, and so we sold it about 20, 25, 30 years ago. So Emily Spaulding did the paperwork, received the contracts and applications that Fran Finesse had signed, and there was a man there named Roger O. He doesn't write his last name legibly, and he's from Peekskill, and I asked him to sign the application for Peekskill, and I don't have a great deal of confidence in him. I could take care of him for several places, Harrison and White Plains and Nassau and maybe Hauppauge. But I don't have a great deal of confidence that he'll take care of Peekskill, and he said he could also take care of Yorktown for me. All of them are signed except 3, Yorktown, Peekskill, and Harrison. And you understand, they are intimidating us by saying that if they aren't signed, they will not cablecast. Now how's that for a limitation of a public forum and free speech, and violation of Congress, and violation of the state legislature, and violation of the municipal franchises? So, I've forgotten what else happened on Thursday. But in the meantime, 11 legal papers had piled up. Papers that have to be worked on every day to be written, to be expressed, and to be distributed. So Friday, just a little bit of time to do the chores, and on the telephone again early in the morning, and I called Benny DeFrance, who has sponsored, that's a bad word, who has been the local contact for a chat with Glendora and Harrison and Port Chester for years. And I said that Cablevision this year wanted things signed. And so I went over to his house at 9 o'clock and found out from him what to say about the veterans. I want to say to all of you veterans, go to your local VA office. There's one in White Plains, there's one in the Bronx, and one in everywhere, in Manhattan and Long Island. Go to your local VA office and sign up for your veterans benefits and get a card. And they'll take care of your eyeglasses, and Benny says they take care of your shoes, and they take care of your medical care. And there's other veteran benefits like a flag, or you can be buried in the Veterans Cemetery in Calverton, Long Island. There's widow benefits and widower benefits. So veterans, please go to your local VA office and sign up and get a card. And Benny keeps saying, enjoying your freedom? Then thank a veteran, such as the Iwo Jima. And so Benny, he had on his dining room, great big dining room table, he has a nice house. There's a great big china basket. It's this long, it's this wide, and the handle comes up like that, and it's just filled 3/4 with candy, Easter candy. So Benny signed the contract and the applications. That's Benny DeFonce and Harrison. And then I had to go to Connecticut, to Norwalk, and hand in a chat with Glendora that was made on Tuesday, and pick up 6 a chat with Glendora programs that had been cablecast. And John Sherwood told me that he talked to Bill Budrow and that everything was all set as far as the application and the contract. And then John Sherwood and I sat down and we talked, and it was fun. It was nice. I like John Sherwood. And he told me about his wife's being a school principal. And did I ever tell you the joke about that Franklin, when he was covering the PTA, when he was covering the school board in Springfield, Massachusetts as a reporter for the Springfield Union, the superintendent told this joke that a woman didn't feel very well and she went to the doctor. And the doctor said, well, there's nothing wrong with you. He says, you're just expecting a child. And the woman began to cry inconsolably. And the doctor said, but it isn't that bad. She says, it isn't that. It's the thought of all of those PTA meetings again. And so John and I talked for a long time, and I enjoyed it. And Acumen had taken off. I tell you, he's a chore, that doggy. He's awful cute. Acumen, did you want to come in? Here he comes. You awful cute dog. But you bad dog. And I'd taken Rusty, so that was good. Rusty loves to ride with me. And we went to Connecticut, and we came back, and I went to the White Plains Post Office. The in-mail is horrendous. Stacks and stacks of in-mail, which makes all these legal papers. I hate in-mail. And I mailed a chat with Glendora, and it cost about $19. And I came home Friday afternoon. Oh, and I went to Bronxville. And because the appearance ticket they gave me is really illegal, and one of the legal papers I wrote was saying that the appearance ticket had to be dismissed because it was hopelessly and fatally defective. It said running at large. It didn't say what was running at large. And this was a violation of my due process. And so I wrote out a motion, a notice of motion, to dismiss and an affirmation in support. And then I took it to Bronxville. But those lazy people, before noon, were shut up tight. Friday was not a holiday, by any stretch of the imagination. But these loafers have to make a fake holiday and go off and loaf at the taxpayer's expense. So then I came home, and by the way, we had beautiful weather that day. The weather that we're supposed to have in spring. And then I had to recuperate, but first of all, I got a real meal, because with all of this running around, keeping up with the illegal things that cable does, illegalities, and keeping up with the law breaking of Charles Dolan, there was no time to have a real meal. And a real meal is like vegetarian hamburger or vegetarian fried chick or vegetarian cold cuts or vegetarian hot dogs or whatever, and potato or rice or some kind of a starch like that, and a green vegetable or an orange vegetable or something. But that's a real meal, and there was no time to have one, along with a salad and fruit juice and nuts and a fresh fruit. So that's the first thing I did, made sure that Franklin and Glendora had a real meal. And then I sat down at the desk, and that's what you call solar energy, S-O-U-L-A-R energy. And prayed and meditated. And then I got up enough strength to do a legal paper. Now, which one was it? Well, it's one of the ones in this pile. And that was Friday. Saturday, I declared I would not go out. I should stay in every day and write these legal papers until they're done. And so Saturday, I think I did five legal papers. And I'm going to go through those with you. Sunday was Easter, and that was a rush around doing the chores and getting the laundry done and grocery shopping for the dogs and cats. And Franklin is very good now. He gets up by himself, he gets dressed by himself, and he looked very, very nice in his red and black plaid vest and his black Sunday church suit. And we went to church, and Easter was jubilant. Patty came over to the church to fetch us because her finger was injured. Then we went over to Pat, and I went over and I bandaged her finger and got disinfectant on it. And we talked. I didn't get home until about 2 o'clock. That's too late. But I did several legal papers. Monday, I tried to make it an in-day, and I got the meditating up to date and the praying up to date. There's 47 details and 11 legal papers. Reading the Brown Book, which is so interesting. A memorandum of law to my New Mexico judge. Callaghy is doing his filthy, underhanded, dirty, liar-for-hire work for Charles Dolan, saying in the Delaware court Glendora's informer papyrus should not be granted because she files frivolous litigation. Well, what is frivolous is Callaghy's papers and Dolan's hiding and the orders of the judges that Dolan buys. That's what's frivolous. And I have to sue Brooklyn, Domingo Martin, and Oneida Coward, a mayor. I have to sue those people because they are limiting and prohibiting public access. Doris Sassauer disconnected the telephone answering machine for 949-9495, a dirty thing to do. And I had to write and tell her, but also to thank her for having the telephone there for so many years. And Dolan shareholder, I'm writing the number 18 memorandum to the Delaware court on him, and doing the public file, the things that I just reported to you on least access, public access, and the political sponsorship file. And I did a lot of work on the refiles, the lawsuits that were handed in and that were not adjudicated on their merits. And there's about 40 people to sue there, mostly judges, who betray America, betray you, the public, and betray your rights. So, and then there's quite a few errands. So Monday, I wrote on the legal papers until 9 o'clock, and at 9 o'clock I took the notice of motion to dismiss the appearance ticket for Wednesday night over to the Bronxville court clerk, and it's stamped received. And came back, worked on legal papers again. And yesterday I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 legal papers.